So welcome to the afternoon session, where we will dive into the mysteries of experimental and empirical evaluation of deep nets. And for our first talk, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Jonathon Phillips from NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, a pioneer in evaluation of machine learning algorithms. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me to give a talk. So, over the last day and a half, I've talked with a number of people, and they've all sort of said, what does NIST do in deep recognition? Well, NIST is very broadly involved in a wide range of deep learning activities, but the core, from my point of view, is one thing NIST does is we measure stuff. So in relating to D algorithms we measure performance of algorithms. So my division at NIST, we have 3 groups out of 4 who specialize in measuring the performance of complex classifier systems. Examples are, one recent project was in support of the DARPA Metaphor program to determine if images have been manipulated or fake. We have other ones more traditionally, for example, the TREC series evaluations. We also have done speaker recognition and machine language-to-language translations. What is my group or my involvement? Well, I have spent the last 25 years working on measuring the accuracy of face recognition systems and also other visual biometrics. So I was asked here to talk about, and this includes collecting data sets to support the evaluations, and I'm going to talk about evaluations and what data sets allow you to learn. I've decided to pick 3 case studies that I have worked on. One is 25 years progress in face recognition. The other is face recognition accuracy of forensic examiners, super recognizers, and algorithms. And the other is something called the other race effect. This is more commonly known as one issue in fairness and bias of AI systems or pattern classification systems. So NIST, or the government, has been testing the performance and actually releasing both data and doing independent evaluations of face recognition systems starting in 1993. It's still ongoing. Our latest test was released last November in 2018. This has been a series of regular independent evaluations. The one thing I'm going to look at is frontal face images and controlled lighting. One of the key things we have at NIST is we have sequestered data. In fact, we have a lot of sequestered data. And since 2002, prototype systems have been sent to NIST for testing and evaluation. And because they come to us, people don't get to see the data. They know what type of data they have, but they do not get to see the data, so we can repeat and evaluate them numerous times. But one of the things is, as we have grown and the test has advanced, we need to change the data sets in order to continue measuring the progress. And I'll briefly mention that or put that as an issue. So what are the data sets? So when I first started in 1993, we had a laboratory collected data set. And when it's finished in 1996, we had just shy of 4,000 images and just shy of 1,200 subjects or people or faces. And at that time, this was a huge data set and it was quite an undertaking. Starting in 2002, we were provided with images from the Department of State. These are non-immigrant visas. There's 108,000 images of 36,000 subjects. Once again, at that point, there was a very large number. And starting in 2010, we had mugshots provided to us to evaluate them, and this is 1.6 million images. One reason the data remains sequestered is that these last 2 Department of State and mugshots are data that cannot be provided outside of NIST, and also I cannot show the images themselves for privacy concerns. So we look at 2 questions. The first was verification. Here you'd see a pair of images, and you would be asked if they're the same person or not, or the algorithm would decide if they're the same person or not. Starting in 2010, we moved to having a database of 1.6 million mugshots. We would know a person was in there, and the measure we want is what's the success rate, or rather the error rate of, if we put somebody in, what's it rank 1 retrieval. So if we put a face in here, if, for example, you put my face in as a database, would it appear as a top-ranked person out of 1.6 million mugshot images in our data set? And here's the chart. Let me go over this to explain part of this. So here, this is the year of the evaluation. Over here, for points over here, when you give a pair of images, there are two errors you can make. One, you can confuse me with somebody else. This is a false accept. We fix this rate at 1 in 1,000. So for every 1 in 1,000 trials of putting somebody in, you'd say it's that. You would say it's not that person. The other error we're looking at is if I put my face up and I'm trying to verify or say I'm Jonathan, what's the rate that we should say it was different? So back in 1993, when eigenfaces was state-of-the-art, the corresponding error rate was 0.79. You'd see this steadily decrease. We switched data sets here in blue, and from 17 years, the rate here is 0.003, or if I tried to verify the rate at which it would say I'm not me would be 3 tries out of 10,000. At this point, this is a significant drop in performance, and even here, if I said this rate was down here, my compatriots of people who use these would have laughed me out of the room and said, no way. So at this point, here, we move to this data set here, where here's the error rate, which is 1 or 1 point retrieval rate. And remember, there's 1.6 million mugshots. At this point, the error rate for rank 1 retrieval was 7.7%. We've now done this test going down here. In 2018, of results from algorithms from last year, that error rate is down to 3 tries out of 10,000. What we see here is this continually exponential decrease in the error rate, and if we want to do an order of magnitude improvement, we could say that once every 2 years, the error rate has been halving for face recognition systems. The one point looking at here is, I can ask you, when did the deep revolution occur? So it's interesting, if you look at this graph, there's no obvious place where you see drops, but it continues. So this shows that even over 25 years, there's been a continuous drop in performance decrease in the error rate over the 25 years, which to me is amazing in this drop rate. And the availability of data sets that are sequestered, we can test them and also increase the capability of them is measuring this. The one thing this just looks at one problem, which was the concentration back in here. There's a much wider increase in other scenarios, uncontrolled, change in pose. I'd recommend that if you're interested in seeing this from face.nist.gov, you can download the latest test report and see where the status is of problems and other aspects of face recognition. So one of the things I'm talking another two are more applied with required controlled data sets. So over a decade, from 2002 to 2012, in collaboration with Patrick Flynn and Kevin Boy at University of Notre Dame, we collected 1 million biometric samples. This include face, iris, and 3D, and other ones, including twins. The key thing here is we had multiple sessions. So during many active years, the goal was to have the same people come in repeatedly over a given academic year. This allows us to measure the variation in face and the variation in signature over that period of time. And also the other fact we could do here is we could vary systematically the locations and get other data and control factors that allow us at some point to take these into effect and see how people varied and recognition varied. So one of the studies that came up we did, because we had this, is called, I talked about face recognition accuracy, forensic examiners, super recognizers, and algorithms. This is a question that came up. Actually, there was a Sackler colloquium back in November of 2005 that was looking at what is forensic science, so how do you measure accuracy of forensic science? At that time, I did talk about this, but in that succeeding period, there's been a lot of investigation of how accurate people are. So to give you examples, we looked at facial forensic examiners. These are people who are highly trained. They will do detailed comparisons of two facial images. And for example, if they had two images of me, and the prosecutor would want to say that's Jonathan in the scene, they would call a facial forensic examiner in, he or she would compare the images and then explain to the court why they're the same. And one of the issues that came up is are these people accurate or not? Should we trust their testimony and how well they do? In the United States, this is called the Daubert standard. So we completed this, and this was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science last May in 2018. And here's an example of the stimulus we gave. Here is these people the same identity, and these people a different identity. I don't have time to go into here, but we were key in selecting very hard pairs of faces to give the examiners. So what are the subject groups? I've mentioned facial forensic examiners, and one thing we wanted to test them and why we did this was we actually gave them the images and they had time to complete the comparisons using their methods and tools they would use as if they were preparing a case for court. We also have reviewers who are people who are not trained as well, but have some training and do make comparisons for make decisions and generating leads. There's also a class of people called super face recognizers. This has been popularized in the press. These are people with a natural ability to do face recognition. They have not been trained, but one of the examples of this class of people are they're super recognizers associated with the Metropolitan London Police. We recruited super recognizers, and we did measure the performance. We did fingerprint examiners with no face experience, so it could be that all forensic examiners have that ability, so we tested them as control for forensics, and also we did undergraduate students to baseline with the general population and with the results in the literature. Last group we had is we put 4 face recognition algorithms in. One is VG Face out of Oxford. This is now a baseline you can download, or at the time was a baseline. And also we arranged to have 3 state-of-the-art algorithms that were developed by Ramachalappa's group at the University of Maryland. All these algorithms are deep convolutional nets, and for those who are interested, their training did not involve any images collected at Notre Dame, so there's no question of maybe they learned Notre Dame images since were not trained on Notre Dame images. These were, not only were the subjects new, but also the imaging conditions were new. So let me go through this one chart that will have a number of lessons that do this. So here, these are the groups I mentioned earlier. These are the examiners. Our measure of performance per examiner was the AUC. And here's an AUC of one examiner, and here's the AUC of another examiner. So 1.0 here means they were perfect. So we have 7 examiners who had an AUC of 1 and had a perfect score. We also go down here at 0.5 or random, and this would be a random person making a decision. As you can see, this dot here is the median, which is 0.93. So we see a large portion of the examiners did very well on this study. But we also have this long tail going down here of variable performance. So these are the other groups we have here, and these are examiners and super recognizers. This 3 here, performance are not statistically different. Here's fingerprint examiners, and they are statistically different than these other groups, and these are students. So sort of some takeaway lessons from this is every group has somebody who is excellent performer, but also there's a large range of performances for groups, including the face specialist. And if you're wondering, for example, the range here for super recognizers, this has been documented in other facts in the literature. The next slide we have here is the algorithms. So this is the baseline VG face. Its performance is equivalent to a median student. And the year here is the year these algorithms are published or developed. You see with each year going up, the order of published performance increases. And at the very best, this algorithm, A27B, is roughly equivalent to the performance of the best examiners or humans out there we have. There are many more details in the paper, but let me highlight here is facial examiners are significantly better than the general population. There's no statistical difference among examiners, reviewers, and super recognizers. Oops, let me go back. And I skip down here. Fusing two human judgments is effective, but the best performance we got was this here. Performance is optimized by fusing one facial examiner and the best algorithm here. And there was a headline after this appeared that said, face experts are best with an AI sidekick. And as far as we know, this is the first time that this has been documented, and we know from speaking with the facial recognition facial examiner groups, they are now looking at how to apply this into the work process to improve their overall accuracy. So this is exciting. We found something new, but the findings also went and can have an impact on society. This last case study on the other race effect, the only thing I'll notice here before I go on, this is very popular and very important, and these are results we discovered in 2010 in this paper here, and I'll say there is an other race effect, and further studies need to be done. I would like to, at this point, rather than go through this, go to, so you see this quickly, go to my general thoughts I have on this. So one of the things when collecting data sets and experiments is the data sets support the experimental analysis you want to do. It's fine if you have it, but you need to address this question: does the data set support it? And I believe that if you were allowed to collect data to support experiments, you could maybe have a stronger basis in a wider range of experiments. Know the content of the data sets. Back in the ferret day when doing the evaluations, I remember visiting Sandy Pentland at MIT, and he had every ferret image posted on his wall looking at them. He got to know his data very well. Refresh your data sets regularly. Should be a long-term commitment to do this. The other thing is reviewing this. The community should adopt rules for retiring data sets. And I've been told that the excuse that when I get 5,000 Google sites in my paper before we retire a data set is not a scientifically valid reason for continuing to use a data set itself. But also some thoughts of this is challenge problems, which is when you give data out. There's a very powerful tool, but I'd like to notice it's not the only tool out there. Also, two things to consider is that a well-designed data set challenge problem advances both technology and science, is a good investment, and it'll have a lifespan of 10 plus years. But a poorly designed data set or problem set is you'll waste resources, but probably the thing that's sort of depressing, it still can have a 10-year plus lifespan. So if people think about how to design data sets, look at the questions you have, consult the people that will be using them, and make an effort to make it a well-designed one that advances on a direction the community needs, not put it out there and people spend a lot of time using it, getting results, and as a reviewer, you're not quite sure what to do when somebody reports results on that point of view. And I see I have, with 30 seconds left, I'd like to say thank you.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Any questions to Jonathan?
So there's another report from the National Research Council which looked into practices for jury trials and eyewitness testimony, and they found there was that it's incredibly impressionable. That is to say, the instructions given to the person who is supposed to identify the face could have a huge difference on what they actually identified. And I don't know if you've thought about that issue or come across it.
So I've come across aspects of that because of meetings. We didn't look at that. The other thing you would bring up to them is there's a huge variety of facial recognition ability, which I think this clearly shows. And they're seen reticent even to do the basic thing. Is this person close to being face blind, or are they a super recognizer? And some reason that's off limits. And I do know there's a significant debate on how you present them. Do you use six-packs? How do you go through? I'm just not familiar with that literature. I know it's very important.
Thank you very much.